Your father remembers things from your childhood that you were too young to ever remember yourself, and if you truly realize them today, they might break your heart. I dare you not to call your dad after watching this video. One of the strangest things about a father and son relationship is this. Some of a father's most precious memories were never shared equally between them. They belonged only to the father, because the child was far too young to understand that those moments would become unforgettable. There was an entire life happening around you that you never saw. Try to remember it now. When you were just a baby, sleeping on his chest, to you it was only sleep, but he stayed awake for hours, afraid to move his arms so he wouldn't wake you up. He stared at your tiny face in disbelief, wondering how someone so small could completely change the shape of his life. Those nights when you cried for no clear reason, you remember nothing, but he carried you around the room, whispering meaningless words just to calm you down. And when he finally fell asleep, he sat there silently, exhausted, like a soldier returning from battle. When you said your first word, you don't remember it, but he repeated it over and over that same day, telling your mother and every relative as if you had delivered a historic speech at the United Nations. Maybe he smiled to himself afterward, replaying the moment all night, thinking, "My son is growing up." The first time you stood without falling, you didn't feel the fear he felt. He wasn't just watching a child walk. He was watching the first step toward a life where he wouldn't always be able to protect you. And the first time you got sick with a fever, you remember the medicine and its awful taste. He remembers checking your forehead every few minutes, waking up throughout the night just to make sure you were breathing normally. Because most fathers aren't afraid of the exhaustion. They're afraid of being unable to take the pain away from their child. Every time you ran toward him when he came home, he felt like there was someone in this world waiting for him, no matter how difficult his day had been. Do you remember how often you used to say, "Dad, watch me. Dad, watch me jump. Dad, watch me draw. Dad, watch me run"? And one day, you said it for the last time. He didn't realize it was the last time. He didn't write down the date or record the moment. But years later, it suddenly hit him that no one had asked him to watch in a very long time. Your first day at school, you were busy with toys and new faces, but after he dropped you off, maybe he stood far away watching a little longer before leaving, turning back more than once just to make sure you weren't crying after he disappeared. And when the teacher said you did well that first day, you forgot about it within hours, but he carried it inside him like a personal achievement, proof that maybe he was doing something right. When you were 5 or 6, fell asleep quickly after a long day, sometimes he would quietly into your room just to make sure you were still there. He'd fix your blanket, move the hair away from your face, then leave without anyone ever knowing. When you asked endless questions, why is the sky blue? Why do people die? Why do I have to go to school? You were only looking for answers, but he was realizing that the little child who once cried for milk had started asking questions about life itself. And as you grew older, becoming more independent, every new sentence from you, every small sign that you needed him less, filled him with pride, and a little sadness too. One day while walking in the market, you let go of his hand and walked ahead on your own. To you, it felt like growing up. To him, it felt like the beginning of something much bigger. The day would come when you would let go completely and walk into your own life. Even when he got angry at you, sometimes it wasn't anger at all. Sometimes it was fear. Fear that one small habit, one small mistake, might hurt you someday. And when you saw him come home exhausted from work, maybe you thought he was only tired, but often his mind was full of questions. Am I a good father? Is my child happy? Am I giving him enough? Will he grow up loving me? Will he remember that I tried? When you became 12 or 13, you started pulling away a little, closing your room door more often, going out more, speaking less. To you, it was normal, but he was silently learning how to love you differently, how to give you space without feeling like he was losing you. And maybe the saddest thing you never noticed is that every year you grew older,
He felt like he was losing another version of you forever. Not because he didn't want you to grow, but because he knew that some versions of you would never come back again. The little child who ran toward him, the tiny hand that wrapped around one finger, the child who believed his father could fix anything. And one day, a father looks at his grown son and smiles, but deep inside he still misses that little boy who disappeared without ever getting the chance to say goodbye. That's why sometimes the greatest moments of fatherhood are not the ones the child remembers, but the quiet little moments the father lived through alone, carrying them silently in his heart for years without telling anyone.